some of your cases that you've assisted with as in regards to trademarks and copyright infringement? One in particular, RWTW?
I don't even recall what year that might have been in. There was a point in time that I was holding my peoples down and securing a couple of trademarks. One of the trademarks was Roll with the Winners, and they also secured the abbreviated form, which was RWTW. So I want to say maybe to the best of my recollection, 2 years into them securing the trademark, we became aware of some dudes that was moving in the sports space, and they were putting out some merch that had the RWTW and Roll with the Winners brand. They was running with that. And it was distributed in Kith and a couple other spots. And my guys became aware of it. They reached out to me. I looked into it. I'm saying that's pretty much one of the first steps is always to look into the situation, do your little due diligence, and determine what, if anything, is the intended course of action, and bringing recourse for the violation of the brand. So me and my guys collectively decided that it would be advantageous for them to get an action started in federal court for infringement. So we started a trademark infringement, unfair competition action, named a couple parties, Kith, the dudes that was behind, what I'm saying, the merch that they were pushing under that brand name. It resulted in a nice little situation for my guys, a little payout, and they was able to still come back and register a similar trademark and just carry on their business. They used the ownership to commence the litigation, came out with a payment, used some of that bread to invest in a new situation. A name that wasn't even too far off. So they went from Roll with the Winners and RWTW to Winners NYC. I'm saying I walked away with a nice bag, and they were still able to pick up from their previous promotions of the RWTW and the Roll with the Winners, and it wasn't too far off that their fan base and their following was still right in tune with the switch up.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, the parties that they litigated against, that they surrendered that mark to, end up not even using the mark, right?
Shortly after, they started to fade. So what I'm saying, after they paid my guys out to buy the trademarks, it doesn't seem like they ever really regained any momentum and pushing the situation forward. So
was it possible for them to go back and then recoup the mark that they sold off? So using Winners NYC, and then the owners that had Roll with the Winners let that brand go, would they be able to come back and then get the mark again?
Because they abandoned their rights in it. So, you know what I'm saying? There's no more.
So they got to check.
It's no longer subject to the settlement agreement because saying the marks and reference have become canceled and they're no longer valid or legally enforceable trademarks. That wouldn't prevent my guys or anyone else for that matter from coming in, scooping up the rights now, because I'm saying they allowed the trademarks to lapse.
That's a double win.
Exactly. I'm sure that's not the only instance in which a similar scenario played out and uncovered behind a brand-related dispute.
So there's so many ways that people are unaware that something as simple as a name or a logo could get them paid.
Absolutely.
You don't need a job. Oh, I gotta get a job and I gotta work. No, you have an asset that you build value in that you could sell off or license, and even in the instance where you get a check and then it becomes abandoned, and you come right back around and scoop that shit back up again.
Exactly. Wow. Yep.
Have you had any crazy stories?
What's crazy for me is that bringing these infringement actions for myself has resulted in many benefits beyond just a bag. So I received a handful or more than a handful of bags behind my litigation pursuits. But in some instances, me commencing an action in federal court over someone violating my brand ownership has led to a partnership. I walked away with a whole store. I'm saying, behind a similar situation.
Fate of Glory?
Now, it was actually a brand called Coat of Arms.
Oh.
So they had a store on the Lower East Side, which is Lower East Side is where I'm born and raised at. You know what I'm saying? So I was intelligent enough to secure the trademark for Lower East Side. And a little clothing store, they opened up a spot. I'm saying it was called Coat of Arms Lower East Side. And I took issue with them using Lower East Side in connection with, I'm saying, offering and selling clothing products. Particularly in the store in my neighborhood when I spent a significant amount of time building that shit up and making a financial investment into the whole, I'm saying, business structure, you know what I'm saying, that I was building up. So I was like, I wasn't having that shit, you know what I'm saying? So I banged out, started a lawsuit against dude. He wasn't able to pay me what I was asking for in a settlement, so we ended up negotiating where I took over the store. You know what I'm saying? So
that's crazy.
And it was a beautiful situation because most people who lease a store or get an apparel store, they got to do a build out.
Build out, security, deposits,
all different type of shit and all different type of, you're saying, bread needs to be invested in, all that type of situation. And I was able to acquire, I'm saying, the store premises and, I'm saying, have the lease transferred and signed over to me. And I went into a store that was fully built out, that the guy had invested $100,000 in the build out, and I came in there and had to do nothing more than sell and pay, I'm saying, pay the rent that was due to the leasing company and to the owner of the, I'm saying, of the property.
And that's because of you having ownership rights in your mark. Had you not had ownership rights in your mark, that situation would have never fell on your lap.
Exactly. And a similar scenario played out with going back to the whole Dave Mays and Benzino shit when they dropped Monster Magazine and that violated my Monster trademark. I banged on them fast. You know what I'm saying? They gave me a nice bag. I walked away with a nice bag. And they gave me a 5% ownership equity in the company that was, I'm saying, behind the publication, which was Monster Publications LLC. So I got a bag. I got a 5% equity ownership stake in that LLC. I got a paid editor's position because I was doing my little writing at that point in time. And they gave me free advertising in Hip Hop Weekly. And that's not even the only other case in which something like that happened. There was another company out. They were based out of San Francisco, Cali. They were based out of San Francisco. The company was called Ray John. And they were one of those online shipping, I'm saying, print on demand companies, and they had a database of designs in which they offered, I'm saying, merch and different accessories, coffee mugs, mouse pads, etc. And they were also selling Lower East Side merch, and I banged on them. I'm saying, we was able to resolve it. I walked away with a bag from that situation, and they also gave me the ownership in the Ray John company. You know what I'm saying? And hired me to do their entire portfolio of trademarks.
Wow.
And that's not even the only one that a similar situation has occurred, I'm saying, along the lines as well.
So it's not just defending your mark against opposition or infringers, it's also leverage to acquire ownership in companies that you didn't create, job positions or a salary position in companies you didn't create, and payments.
If you properly negotiate certain type of situations in a way that's most favorable for you and that you're going to benefit, you know what I'm saying, with the different perks that I'm saying you're able to agree to or I'm saying make as part of the agreement, that could be very lucrative, way beyond just receiving a settlement payout.
That's a crazy situation. What other place in the world? You don't have to have a high school degree, a college degree. You don't have to have a master's. You don't have to have a business degree. You can have an idea, register that idea, protect it, enforce it, and find yourself up. There's no structure, right? There's no...
And that doesn't even include the money that you could make from directly selling product bearing your brand. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, I had the store. I was capitalizing off of my brand ownership from the merch that I was making and selling, which was obviously making me money, but then I was getting the settlement checks, I was getting equity in companies, I was getting paid positions, you know what I'm saying, as an independent contractor. You know what I'm saying? I was getting, you know what I'm saying, paid to do their legal work aside from, you know what I'm saying, other different areas of revenue that I was generating all simultaneously just from being a brand owner and knowing how to navigate and work the situation to my best, you know what I'm saying, benefit.
It really is a lucrative and it's almost like I hate to say a get rich quick scheme because nothing happens overnight, but essentially it doesn't have all the boundaries that another traditional way of getting rich does.
Oh, definitely.
It could be from the hood. It could be from the West Coast.
Well, look at myself. I'm from the hood. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm technically a 9th grade dropout. I got my GED in the New York State prison.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I went to a little legal studies thing, but they wasn't teaching IP. And in the legal studies program, I was in college.
Yeah.
You know, and I pretty much learned that shit hands-on. Yeah, working in the IP firm, you know, it was very helpful. And you need some, you know, knowledge, but it was my own inquisitive mind and thirst and hunger for knowledge and the interest that I took in that particular field. It made me like above and beyond to even realize that those type of situations are even possible just from being a brand owner. I would have never, you know what I'm saying, thought that to be into that IP world and moving in that space.
So trademarks and copyrights could change a person's life.
Changed my life.
And their family's life and their children's life. You think about it, like brands that still exist today that were created over 100 years ago, and potentially their great-grandchildren or their grandchildren are still benefiting from something that was created in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Right? I think in our culture and where we come from, this is a topic that never gets discussed, and yet it's so important and so valuable because all the music that we listen to is IP. All the clothing we buy
I mean, at the end
IP.
of the day, like ownership through a trademark can create generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The Amazon brand, like Jeff Bezos dies or he just stepped down as the CEO, like equity and the value of that brand still feeds a bunch of people beyond his life. You know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
Like
hitting the lotto, honestly, if
you do it right. And if you built it up to a certain level where you establish, you know, goodwill and equity, then yes, a trademark, you know, in and of itself can be a tool for building generational wealth for your family and those that come beyond your life.
Yeah, and real quick too, because I was about to say, as long as you own a trademark, enrich yourself. But that trademark, that's only part of the story. Owning the trademark doesn't establish the rights in the market. You actually have to use the mark.
Oh yeah, you have to actively use it.
Because if not, then you're a trademark squatter who doesn't have any usage in the market, and you went to enforce it, they'd say, hey, you're not actively using the mark, right? It's almost
exactly. But you don't have to use it directly because there's people that own intellectual property and do nothing else but license it. So as long as your licensee are actively using it, you know what I'm saying, in the marketplace, that suffices as use.
It's own 5 of those houses right there. You ain't gonna live in all 5, but you can rent them out.
Yeah,
You're the property owner.
Yeah, so you're
right?
still, you know what I mean? You're still utilizing it.
You're still utilizing it.
Yeah.
It's not an abandoned house.
At all.
That's dope. That's crazy. Well, on our first episode here of Trademark Champs, these are some of the behind stories.
Stay tuned. We coming with some ill stories regarding, you know what I'm saying, brand ownership, how, you know, I've been navigating in this space for many years, been beneficial to me. Some of what we just explained, you know what I'm saying, not only in leading me to a lot of bags, but you know, opportunities and situations that have went beyond, you know, money.